You are listening to the New Book of Daniel podcast. Hello and welcome to the New Book of Daniel podcast. My name is Daniel Bobinski. I'll be your host on this adventure. Got a short show for you today. I really want to highlight my column over at uncoverdc.com titled The Gaslighting of America. If you've been watching the news, the network news, the cable news, if you've been on social media, you have seen a lot of gaslighting. Now, that's a term that we hear a lot of, and not many people know where the term comes from. The term actually originates from a British play, 1938 stage play, called Gaslight. And the play was set in 1880, and there's a husband and a wife, and they're living in an apartment. Back in the days before electricity was all popular, they had gas lights in this particular apartment. You know, little gas lights on the wall, gaslighting. And the husband, turns out, little spoiler alert here, the husband murders the lady who lives upstairs from them. She has a lot of jewels, and he wants those jewels, and he kills her. They take her away. They never solve the murder, but he has never found the jewels. He keeps going upstairs looking for where her jewels are hidden. And while he leaves, he's walking around upstairs. He goes into that apartment upstairs, and he turns on the gas lights. He lights the lights upstairs. Well, the gas main runs through the entire apartment complex. And so when he lights the lights in the upstairs apartment, it dims the lights ever so slightly in the rest of the building. And of course, the wife hears somebody walking around upstairs. So when he comes back, she's telling him she's hearing footsteps upstairs when there should be nobody there, and that the lights are getting dim. And he, tries to convince her. He's trying to cover up his crime. He tells her she's going insane, that she's not hearing what she's hearing and not seeing what she's seeing. And that's where we get the term gaslighting. When people try to convince you that what you see and what you hear are not true. And that's been happening a lot in America. I mean, you go back to, Donald Trump before he ran for president. He was very popular with the Black community. He donated lots of money to the different causes. And you can go online and look at old photographs of Donald Trump with Jesse Jackson, Al Sharpton, boxing promoter Don King. These people are just having a great time in all these photographs. And isn't it funny that nobody really called Donald Trump a racist until he decided to run for office as a Republican? And this is, lo and behold, this gaslighting. We're told that he's a racist, and yet all the evidence shows something different. We're not supposed to believe our eyes. We're not supposed to believe our ears. We're supposed to believe what they tell us, and that's called gaslighting. A second area of gaslighting has to do with Donald Trump being a perpetual liar. I mean, Chris Cuomo over at CNN is always talking about how Donald Trump's a liar. And I went and found this article over on the Washington Post. Yes, I did some dumpster diving and found an article in the Washington Post. And they had this piece that Trump averages 50 false or misleading claims a day. And when you read the article, the first half, they give no examples of lies. It's just statistics that he lies this many times and this many times a week. And, they talk about how their statisticians, the people compiling Trump's lies, can't even keep up. And if you're just getting caught up in this little story that they're telling, you almost feel sorry for them that they can't keep up with all of Trump lies. And you tend to start thinking, wow, the guy is nonstop deceiver, until you get halfway through. And then they give us an example of one of Trump's lies. Get this. The U.S. economy today is the best in history. Yes, that's pretty damning, isn't it? Washington Post is very quick to tell us that's not true. It doesn't matter that they're defining the economy one way and Trump's defining the economy another, like the lowest unemployment for minorities in American history, lowest percentage of unemployment, and the highest median income in national history. That's pretty good news. But get how they count their lies. They say, like he says, 50 false or misleading claims a day, right? Well, get this. If Trump said that the economy today is the best in history 25 times in a day, then the Washington Post counted that as 25 separate lies. a little unethical, if you ask me. Now, you're not going to get any argument from me that Trump is famous for his hyperbole. I really believe that he's overspeaks and he blows stuff up. It's the greatest, it's the best, it's all the time. But I don't think anybody in America was negatively affected by Trump saying that the economy is the best in history. And the media is all over him, quote unquote, lying all the time. I never heard a peep from the media when his predecessor said, if you like your doctor, you can keep your doctor. Or if you like your healthcare plan, you can keep your healthcare plan. We never heard a peep from that. So when they tell us that Trump is repeatedly lying, it's gaslighting. You're not supposed to believe your eyes. You're not supposed to believe your ears. In fact, you're not even supposed to believe your pocketbook. Think back to prior to the arrival of the virus from China. We had like I said, record low unemployment for minorities, median household income nationwide, record highs. But the media tells us that we're not supposed to trust Trump. Everything's bad. And so people start to doubt. Well, maybe they're right. Maybe we're not so good under Trump, just because they're telling us and people start believing it. All right. So now let's talk about this gaslighting and the election, because it's been nothing but gaslighting. They keep telling us that Joe Biden is going to be the next president. I'm sorry. He hasn't had 270 electoral votes certified to his name. So he's not the president-elect. Projected winner? Sure, I'll buy that. I'm intellectually honest enough to say they're projecting that. But I'm also intellectually honest enough to say, well, Mr. Trump is filing a lawsuit against multiple states. And they're going to be recounts, and there's going to be, evidence presented to courts. And those states could flip back to Trump. So that's what you're not hearing in the media. They're not talking about that at all. A couple of Fox News hosts are. There usually have some people who have brains on Fox News. Jesse Waters, Greg Gutfeld, Lou Dobbs especially, and Tucker Carlson. These guys still have some intellectual honesty. But everybody else is still talking about President-elect Joe Biden and how Trump is refusing to concede. I'd refuse to concede too. We have some legal things to look at. Anyways, you're hearing nothing but fake stuff coming out of the media. In fact, over on Twitter, they have their little election updates. You scroll through their feed and they tell you election officials say that voter fraud, which is historically rare, has not affected any outcomes of this election. Let's just say yet. And actually, I guess it has affected the outcomes because Trump has filed lawsuits against certain states. So therefore, it has affected the outcome. And then they have a bullet point that says that these election officials have confirmed that mail-in voting was conducted in accordance with state voting rules. Oh my gosh, we could write a book so far on what we've uncovered about these rules that have been broken. But let me give you just one. There's a judge in Northern California who tagged Governor Gavin Newsom for overstepping his authority when he issued an order in June that required vote-by-mail ballots to be sent to the state's 22 million registered voters. Kind of unconstitutional. The U.S. Constitution says that each state's legislatures are charged with establishing voting procedures, not state governors, not state courts, state legislatures. So when the governor decides how voting is going to happen, he has basically violated the U.S. Constitution, which is the supreme law of the land. That same clause was violated in Pennsylvania and other states. And yet Facebook has told us that everything happened according to state laws. Not so. That's called gaslighting, which is basically a polite term for lying. Don't believe what you hear. Don't believe what you see. Believe what we tell you. Thankfully now, and I'll wrap up with this, we have Rudy Giuliani and we have Sidney Powell, the attorney who is representing General Flynn and is now working also with President Trump. And they're taking this stuff to the courts. And Sidney Powell was on Lou Dobbs on the 13th. And she said she can hardly wait to put forth all the evidence showing the fraud. She said, we have staggering statistical evidence, staggering testimony from witnesses, including someone who was personally in briefings when all of this was discussed and planned. She says these are federal felonies and that altering a vote or changing a ballot is a federal felony. And folks, we have so much evidence coming out now about the federal felonies about vote changing. And then, of course, maybe you've seen the hashtag the past couple of days called Release the Kraken. That came from Sidney Powell. When Lou Dobbs gave her the last word, she said the fraud has been organized and conducted with the help of Silicon Valley. the big tech companies, the social media companies, and even the media companies, and I'm going to release the Kraken, unquote. The Kraken, most folks who've seen the Pirates of the Caribbean movies know what the Kraken is. That's that big sea creature that comes up when it's called and takes care of the enemies in no uncertain terms. So kind of fun. We've got some fun times ahead. Do not believe what the media and the social media platforms are telling you. Believe what you see, believe what you read. Get off of the major media. Get off of the major social media platforms. Find yourself a home on MeWe. Find yourself a home on Parler. You can speak freely without being afraid of getting your posts blocked or censored or flagged or getting any warnings. You can speak freely on those platforms. All right, we're going to wrap with that. This is Daniel Bobinski with the New Book of Daniel podcast. If you'd like to get a hold of me, just send me an email, newbookofdaniel@outlook.com. You can also follow me with the @NewBookOfDaniel tag at Parler and MeWe, and also on Twitter and Facebook. And if you want to read my stuff, this column that I just talked about is over at uncoverdc.com, and I also write for Red State. This has been Daniel Bobinski. I thank you very much for listening. I'll catch you on the next show. Until then, be blessed.